Hey YouTube, welcome back. It is November 10th. We are having our first kind of cold snap here in Illinois. It's kind of down in the 20s. I think it's actually going to get down even lower down into single digits tonight, but that's okay because we're in a heated garage and so it's a balmy 68. And tonight we're going to be working on the truck a little bit. We actually have a ton of parts for the BMW in right now, and I was going to do those first, but because it's snowing and it's salty, I did not want to take the truck out, so the truck's clean, the BMW is not, so obviously we're going to work on the truck instead. Now thankfully the truck is actually running very well and it doesn't need a whole lot, but one thing that I have been noticing is that the steering is starting to loosen up, and there aren't many things that aren't pretty new on it right now, and the one thing that is not is the tie rods. And I've been noticing the last couple times I've been working down there is that the ball joints in the tie rods are starting to really loosen up, getting pretty sloppy. And so I said, you know, it's time to replace those. Those Rare Parts G2 tie rods that are on there, those have been on there since I bought the truck. They were installed by the previous owner, and they've done great. Absolutely nothing wrong with them, not knocking on them, but I mean, they've got 100,000 miles plus on them, so, you know, since they were installed that I know about, and they haven't been exactly the easiest miles with wide tires and boosted launches, truck pulls, everything like that. So it's just time to upgrade. Now, as most people know, if you're looking for steering and suspension upgrades, one of the best people on the market is Kryptonite, right? And so that's what we went with. We have Krpytonite DeathGrip tie rods, give you a sticker, as well as an instruction little sheet and that kind of stuff. And then the actual tie rods themselves as a pair. You can see they're very large. Not really sure what else to say about them, but the fact that they look really nice, and I'm pretty excited to see how much larger they are than the ones that I have on there. You know, everybody says these are the best, they're the biggest, blah, blah, blah. I'm curious to see if they actually are any bigger or better than the Rare Parts G2 tie rods that are on there. I know they'll do very well. I'm just curious to see if they actually are bigger or better. Obviously, these are a casting versus a forging, etc., but even so, just interested to see how much different they are. Seriously guys, I don't care if you're Milwaukee fans or DeWalt or Snap-on or whatever. If you don't have a little 3/8 stubby gun like this, you are missing out, especially if you're just a home guy and you're not actually a shop owner or whatever. This thing packs 255 foot-pounds of torque, and it is awesome. It's great for wheels. There's literally almost nothing on this truck that it can't break loose, which is amazing. Okay, so the first step, obviously, once the wheels are off, are to remove the old tie rods. And so there is one stud here for the ball joint on it, going to the spindle, and then it obviously attaches to the center link in the back. So I just use my little gun again. It kind of works pretty well. It doesn't allow the stud to spin at all. But if you don't have that, you can use a wrench and then a pliers on the stud itself there to stop the stud from spinning, and go ahead and get that off without too big of an issue. Once you've done that, just tap on it to get it to pop loose, and then we'll work on the back side. Alright guys, so it is actually the next night purely because I did not have the right tools to get these things off last night. So we left last night with the stud out of the spindle, but we still need to get it off of the center link itself, and that takes a rather large wrench, right? So it comes right out of here. See the center link right there where it unscrewed from? But that's almost a 2-inch wide wrench that you're going to need to be able to pop that off, at least for an aftermarket one. The stock ones might be a little bit smaller, but if you already have aftermarket, they generally have a pretty large nut on that end. So basically you just have to pop that loose and they'll unthread like a normal nut will. So one thing to make sure that you do is that you mark the left side and the right side, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to measure them from the end to the center of the stud to make sure that you can recreate that on your new one. That way you can still drive it if you have to for a little bit before you can get it to an alignment shop. Otherwise, who knows where they'll be at, right? So it's pretty easy to do. Just measure from the face to the center of the stud, and then we'll match that again here. But before we do that, we can go ahead and take a look at them side by side. They're actually really comparable. I think these actually have 1.5 inch circular diameter versus this is 1.25 inch. So it's just a tiny bit smaller. Once again, I'm sure they're actually a little bit stronger, but even so, it's not like Rare Parts are exactly a bad way to go either. But one thing I really do like about these is that the entire ball joint here, this is replaceable. So, you know, in this case, you know, this ball joint is shot. I'm not sure if these ones might be okay still, but even because this one's shot, I have to replace this entire piece, where in this one I could just call up Kryptonite or Gmax store or whoever your dealer is, and I could just replace this piece. So that is actually a pretty neat thing about them. So other than that, we're gonna go ahead and measure these, mark them down, and try to recreate that on this new one. All right, so both of these tie rods have now been adjusted, and the other thing to mention about this, guys, is you want to try to make the exposed threads sticking out of the main area of the tie rod to be about the same as much as you possibly can. So we've done that on both of these as well as on this one. So these are now ready to go back into the truck. One last thing here, guys. The instructions actually tell you to put just a little bit of Loctite on these threads, which are going to go into your center link, just to make sure that it doesn't ever back off, whatever. Now these should not have to be replaced very often, never really come off that very often, so I'm going to go ahead and do that just because that's what the instructions are telling me to do. Up to your discretion if you want to use it or not. All right, so just to recap here, guys, go ahead and thread right into the center link there. It's a 2-inch nut, and you crank that down to 100 foot-pounds. On the stud, you just put that through there, and that's a 21 millimeter nut, and you crank that to 48 foot-pounds. Obviously, I just used my gun there. I think that's plenty fine as well. But other than that, guys, they're extremely simple to install. You can go ahead and twist that to make sure you got your brand facing up if you want it up. Other than that, guys, it's pretty simple. So that pretty much wraps up the install, guys. The truck is back on the ground. The most important step now is to go ahead and get it to an alignment shop and get that done. Probably have to wait for the weather to get a little bit better here. It's still snowy. It's supposed to warm up here for the next week and a half, I think, or so. So try to get that done in that time. But other than that, guys, we're now going to take a break from the truck here for the next little bit. I've got a lot of parts for the BMW to put on. We've got new brakes, new rotors, new LED headlights. I've got lowering springs. I've got all kinds of stuff to do the BMW. So still be plenty going on, and then we'll get back to the truck at some point. So have a great night, guys.